Hi, friends. I'm Michelle, and this is Some Days Here, a place where we talk about being real and living in life, even when everything is not perfect. And as some of you may have realized, I have kind of been absent for the last few weeks, and I apologize for that. But I had some medical stuff to take care of, and I just really wasn't feeling all that great. And one thing I definitely work to talk to others about it is taking time to make sure that they take care of themselves and that they rest. So I did that. I honored my nervous system. But here we are, we're back. And today we are going to talk about something um, that I have been doing that has been really interesting to me. And that is EMDR therapy. And you're like, okay, Michelle, what is that? It is eye movement I can't say the word, desensitization and reprocessing. So I, as a therapist, use this. And so I've been on that side of the chair. But lately, I have been the client on the other side of the chair. And so I am going to talk a little bit about my experiences and what that felt like and what I realized as I've been in the middle of working through it. So, we've had a lot of big things go on in the last year and a half, and I've talked about it here, moving across the country, losing my grandma, the whole thing with my losing my job. And that just created a lot of uneasiness and, you know, maybe made me doubt myself a little bit more than I would have prior and allowed for grief, right, from moving and from missing people that I loved. And so I figured, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to somebody and I'm going to see, what I can do to make myself feel a little bit better. So I am seeing an incredible therapist. And like I said, we started doing some EMDR work. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions about EMDR is that it's only for like big T trauma, like catastrophes, fires, major car accidents, things like that. And does it work for that? Absolutely. But it also works for, what we call like negative cognitions or negative beliefs about ourselves or about situations. And so it could work for what we call like little T traumas too. Um, and so when I was going into, beginning the process, I remember kind of talking to the therapist and saying something like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, I am so good at compartmentalization, right? Because that's part of what I do as a therapist. I could listen to everybody's stories and kind of compartmentalize that so I'm not bringing that home or, compartmentalize what's going on in my life so that when I show up as a therapist, I'm fully there for my clients. And so I was like, I just don't know if this is going to work for me. But what I really found out was that my nervous system must have felt so tired of just carrying everything and having it so contained that it was like taking a deep breath when I went into this. And so I was definitely able to do what we call activate and start kind of holding the memories, holding the thoughts, and to go into this process. And when I say like my nervous system was tired, I could only, I'm only going to speak for myself and my experiences. But I think it was just tired of always having to keep functioning even when it didn't feel right or I didn't feel right. So maybe some examples of that or are, after my grandma passed away, um I didn't maybe sit with my grief the way I should have. I had to plan the funeral and go through all her stuff, and then we started the process of listing our house and getting it on the market, and then we moved across the country, and so I'm trying to get our family settled, and my husband's starting a new job, and I'm trying to to start the path of licensure in California. So a lot of things just kind of get, for me anyways, kept getting pushed back and kept pushed back. So my nervous system, like how that shows up, maybe a dysregulation, right, is having a hard time watching new TV shows. Like I'd only be able to watch my comfort shows, right? Because that's all my brain had the energy for. Or maybe just feeling a little more tense, and maybe I respond a little bit quicker with frustration, than I normally would. And so when I began this process and I started to do the processing, it was like my nervous system just took a giant deep breath and was like, okay, we're actually going to be able to talk through this and work through this. Um, One of the things I remember saying to Sean, my husband, after one of the sessions was, I was shocked at how it feels like it kind of just broke everything open in me. And it felt like it was almost too much, maybe almost overwhelming. But then all of a sudden, it was just like it slowly began to lift. And that breaking open feeling, when you've been holding on to things for a long time, it feels intense. Or again, I'm speaking for me, from my perspective of this, right? It felt so intense, and like, there was a part of me that just didn't want to let go, right? Because if I let go of that, would I be able to continue on and do what I needed to do, right? Like if I let this be exposed and be out there instead of being contained, would I be able to thrive and function? Right? And I think that's something that, held me back from stepping into this in this season of my life for a little while longer than maybe I would have. And I don't want to say that EMDR is right for everyone. Again, I'm only speaking from my perspective and what the experience has been like for me. I'm also someone, and I think I talked about this in the one of the last episodes, who's not always great at being really vulnerable. And so I really worried that I wouldn't be able to let down like all of those protectors, right? The protections that I put together for myself to be able to actually sit with all the things and to allow somebody else to see me cry, right? And feel all that I was feeling. But when you are with the right person, right? Like when you're with the right clinician, I think that slowly over time that therapeutic relationship and that trust really does impact how effective therapy ends up being. And I'm very comfortable with this person. And so, again, it was just like taking a deep breath. And then when you notice like the softening of the emotions, the intensity, it's like your whole soul just breathes. And that is so powerful. And for some of the stuff, it was immediate. And some of the stuff I'm still working through, right? But it just feels for me like everything is just a little bit lighter. And that I truly appreciate. And I think one of the powerful things about having gone through this and experiencing it for myself is how much more I understand my clients and maybe their hesitation to come into it, or maybe a little bit of the fear around some of the feelings that come up, or how intimidating it is to let your guards down and to sit with someone in the things that feel kind of yucky for you. I think it makes me even more grateful to have the job that I do, because I know how brave and incredible people who seek therapy are, because it is not an easy thing to say, hey, something's off and I don't feel right and I need some help. And I just feel honored to get to walk that path with others. And I'm so thankful for the people that are walking that path with me. So, if you're listening and maybe what I'm saying feels overwhelming or like, wow, that seems like a lot. Or, if you've done this and you're like, oh man, I can relate. Or you have realized that after sessions, maybe you feel a little exhausted. I'm going to normalize that because after my sessions, I could honestly say that if possible, I will definitely crash and burn for an hour nap afterwards because we're using a lot of, emotional energy and brain processing. Um, and I also want to encourage you, if you've been on the fence about going to talk to somebody, that maybe your nervous system is more ready than you think it is. I think one of the most humbling parts of this experience was realizing that no matter how much we understand something cognitively from a therapist lens, right? Like, I should know all of this. I should, right? Like, oh, healing is still embodied. And sometimes our systems are more ready than our minds. I thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next